Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're settling in for something calm, something gentle, something to help your mind slow down after a long day. I've gathered a handful of quiet stories. Nothing too loud, nothing too intense, just those soft, strange moments of life that drift through neighborhoods, small towns, and the places we call home. The little mysteries, the odd routines, and the warm reminders that even in the calmest corners of the world, something interesting is always happening. So take a breath, get comfortable, maybe grab a warm drink or settle under a blanket, and let yourself unwind. These are 5 longer, slower tales, stories of neighbors, nighttime routines, hidden notes, gentle kindness, and the kind of quiet magic that only appears when the world settles down. Let's begin. Story 1. The Cat Who Delivered Letters. When Nora moved into her townhouse, she expected the same quiet life most people imagine when they think of small neighborhoods. A few morning dog walkers, maybe a friendly wave here and there, nothing too special. Her house was modest, with a little stone path and a porch just big enough for a chair and a potted fern she nearly forgot to water. But on her second morning there, she saw something strange. A fluffy orange cat trotted down the sidewalk wearing a tiny brown satchel. At first, Nora laughed softly, assuming someone nearby just loved dressing their cat in cute outfits. But then she saw it pause, sit down, and slip a small folded piece of paper out of the satchel with its paw. It nudged the paper toward a doorstep, flicked its tail, and continued on its route like a tiny mail carrier doing its daily rounds. 3 days later, Nora opened her front door to find the same cat sitting patiently on her welcome mat. It looked up at her with slow blinking eyes, the kind that make you feel like the world is softer than you remember. Inside the cat's little satchel was a note. "Hi. I'm Maple, the neighborhood messenger. Feel free to say hello back." Nora smiled at how simple and sweet it was. She sat down at her kitchen table and wrote a small response, folding it neatly and tucking it into the satchel. Maple blinked once, then trotted off with the confidence of a postal worker on the clock. Over the next few weeks, Maple delivered letters from neighbors Nora had never met. Little introductions, advice about local restaurants, even short poems written by someone 2 streets over. Nothing dramatic, just warmth and friendliness in small doses. People who were strangers slowly became familiar, one tiny handwritten message at a time. Eventually, during a weekend gathering at the community park, Nora met Maple's owner, an older man named Walter with kind eyes and a slow, thoughtful way of speaking. He told her Maple started delivering notes after his wife passed away. Walter had written himself little reminders and tucked them into Maple's collar out of habit. One day, Maple wandered off and someone found a note addressed to Walter, thought it was intentional, replied, and a little tradition began. Nora still keeps every letter she receives. Some nights, when she can't sleep, she rereads them, soft words from soft people, carried by a soft little cat with a satchel. Sometimes, the smallest things bring the deepest comfort. Story 2. The Porch Light That Never Turned Off. Evan liked routines, not out of habit, but out of peace. He worked long hours, and his nightly ritual of stepping outside with a cup of tea was the quietest part of his day. His porch overlooked a small hill, and from the top he could see porch lights flickering on one by one, like stars in a neighborhood sky. But one week, something strange started happening. He'd come home, and his porch light would already be on. At first he thought he'd forgotten to turn it off in the morning. Then he noticed it was glowing even when he knew he'd switched it off, shining gently, pale and calm, like it had a mind of its own. The next evening, he tested it. Turned it off. Watched it. Nothing. But the moment he stepped inside, the bulb flickered to life. He laughed to himself, assuming it was a wiring issue. But then his neighbor across the street, Mrs. Hall, mentioned it too. She said she noticed it turning on earlier and earlier, as if the light were waiting for him. Curiosity got the best of him, so he set up a small camera angled at the porch. Nothing fancy, just something to satisfy the quiet wonder in his chest. The next morning, he reviewed the footage. Nothing seemed unusual at first. Cars passing, leaves blowing across the grass, the gentle sway of shadows. But then, around dusk, a neighborhood cat padded onto the porch. A small, gray thing with a white patch over one eye. It curled up right under the light, and the moment it settled in, the bulb glowed softly to life. Evan blinked. He watched the clip again. Same thing, the cat settled, and the light turned on like it was offering a warm seat for its small visitor. He checked the wiring, but everything was perfectly normal. No automatic timers. No motion sensors. Just a light that seemed to like turning on when the cat arrived. Rather than being unsettled, Evan found it comforting. From that night on, he placed a small cushion on the porch and a little dish of water nearby. The cat visited every evening, curling up in the glow like it belonged there. He never tried to chase it away. Some mysteries are too gentle to disturb. And sometimes, companionship arrives in the form of a stray cat and a warm porch light that knows when to shine. Story 3: The Fence with the Hidden Door. Mara loved her backyard more than she ever expected to. It wasn't huge, but the old maple tree in the center cast a peaceful shadow across the garden. On weekends, she'd sit under it with a book, listening to the wind shuffle through the leaves. Life was quiet, steady, simple. One sunny afternoon, while trimming a cluster of ivy along her fence, she noticed something odd: a small wooden panel set low near the ground. Only about a foot tall, almost fully hidden by overgrown vines. She brushed the plants aside, revealing a tiny door with a brass knob no bigger than a coin. Curiosity tugged at her, so she pressed the knob. The door creaked open, revealing a little tunnel leading into the neighbor's yard. Not big enough for a person, but definitely big enough for a pet. That afternoon, she heard a knock. Her neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Alvarez, stood there with a kind smile and a cane. He explained that decades ago, his old dog Luna used to visit the previous owners through that tiny door. The two families were close, and Luna had practically lived in both yards. After she passed, nobody had the heart to remove the little door. Mara felt warmth bloom inside her chest. There was something beautiful about a memory so cherished it became part of the architecture. Weeks passed, and Mara started noticing a small gray kitten slipping through the hidden door at dusk. It would wander her garden, sniffing flowers, chasing insects, rolling in patches of sunlight like it owned the place. The first time she tried to pick it up, it purred loudly and nuzzled her sweater. The kitten belonged to Mr. Alvarez, a gentle little creature named Misty. Sometimes, it spent half the day lounging in Myra's yard, then slipped back through the tiny tunnel as the sky darkened. Eventually, Mara and Mr. Alvarez developed a quiet friendship through that door. He'd send over small baskets of tomatoes from his garden, and she'd return them with fresh rosemary or tea leaves. Sometimes they didn't even speak. The kittens simply delivered their small gifts through the tiny passageway. The hidden door became a bridge between two quiet lives. A reminder that connection doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it comes through a tiny doorway in an old fence, carried by a gentle gray kitten. Story 4: The Evening Walker. Every night at exactly 9 p.m., the same woman walked through Maya's neighborhood. Same route. Same pace. Same soft, steady rhythm. She wore a long gray coat and a knitted blue scarf that floated behind her like a quiet flag. People called her the Evening Walker. She never disturbed anyone. Never knocked on doors. Just walked the same circle around the neighborhood, always at the same time, always with the calmness of someone who had found peace in repetition. Maya suffered from insomnia, often staring at her ceiling long after the world had fallen asleep. Some nights she'd sit by her window just to catch sight of the Evening Walker. There was something reassuring about the woman's presence, like a lighthouse turning slowly in the dark. One chilly night, Maya stepped outside for fresh air just as the walker approached. The woman paused, gave her a gentle nod, respectful, acknowledging, but not intrusive, and continued her route. The next night, the same thing happened. The nod became routine, grounding, almost meditative. After weeks of this quiet exchange, Maya finally asked a longtime neighbor about the walker. He told her a soft story. Years ago, the woman's husband had passed away unexpectedly. Every night after, she walked the same loop, a ritual they used to take together after dinner. Keeping the route alive brought her comfort, and eventually, her calm presence comforted others too. One evening, Maya walked out a few minutes early and met the woman right at the bend in the sidewalk. They shared a few simple words, nothing deep, nothing heavy. Just warm, human conversation. The kind that settles into your heart like a quiet blanket. After that, Maya's sleepless nights felt a little less lonely. She'd still struggle, still toss and turn, but knowing the evening walker was out there, keeping her own rhythms, embracing her own peace, made everything feel gentler. Some people bring calm into the world simply by moving through it. Story 5. The House That Hummed at Night. On the far end of a small tree-lined street stood an old white house with deep green shutters. Leo had noticed it the day he moved in, a little worn but still charming, like an old photograph with soft edges. But what really caught his attention was the sound it made at night. A humming. Soft. Low. Rhythmic. Almost musical. The first time he heard it, he assumed it was pipes or an air system. But it sounded too gentle for that, like distant flutes echoing faintly through the walls. He asked neighbors about it, expecting someone to mention a creaky boiler or an ancient generator. But most people shrugged, saying they barely noticed anymore. Some said it was the wind. Others said the house had character. No one seemed bothered. One night, unable to sleep, Leo went outside and sat on his steps. The sound drifted across the cool air like a lullaby. Slow, soft, almost hypnotic. It didn't feel eerie, just strangely comforting. The next morning, while checking his mailbox, he met the house's owner, a quiet woman named Lila with calm eyes and a slow, warm way of speaking. When Leo gently asked about the humming, she smiled like someone was sharing a cherished secret. She explained that decades earlier, her grandfather, a retired carpenter with a love for music, had built tiny wooden wind instruments and placed them inside the beams of the house. They were designed to play when air flowed naturally through the structure. Temperature changes at night caused the wood to shift, allowing air to pass through and create those soft notes. As she spoke, Leo imagined it, little wooden flutes hidden inside walls, singing softly through the night. "It sounds like the house is dreaming," he said quietly. Lila nodded. "That's why I've never remodeled the place. As long as it hums, I feel like my grandfather is still here." Ever since that conversation, Leo listens for the humming each night, not with curiosity, but with comfort. Another quiet reminder that even old houses have stories, and some of them sing. Midnight. And that's it for tonight's stories. From gentle routines to tiny hidden doors, from porch lights with personalities to humming houses and wandering neighbors, sometimes the quietest stories are the ones that stay with us the longest. If you enjoyed these slow, calming tales, don't forget to like and subscribe for more cozy nighttime storytelling. For now, let the calm of your own room settle in, breathe slowly, and let the night take over. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next video.